What's up, C2 fam? My name is Angel Alicea. My pronouns are she, her, and Aya, and I am the executive director and founder of Beyond Trenches. We are a national organization primarily focusing on the Southeast and the global South to disrupt and divest from mass incarceration of Black people through directly providing resources to Black folks who are incarcerated, formerly incarcerated, and have been impacted by criminalization through community. So I am here today because one, I am a part of the first ever inaugural Praxis cohort. And I was brought on to lead a workshop today on how to make an ask. And so just to give you a little bit more context on who I am and the background of my work. So I am a youth organizer, and I have been doing youth organizing and also being sustained by mutual aid for about like 10 years. And back in 2020 was when I really had an opportunity to launch my own mutual aid organization, in which I was able to raise $50,000 in 1 month and redistribute those funds to Black people directly impacted. That changed the entire trajectory of my positionality in movement work, because at that time, I recognized one thing. I knew how to make an ask, and I knew how to make the connection between the ask, the community, the need, and then also what the stakeholder could do, right? To also be in the process of disrupting this change. So I want to go ahead and kind of jump in and our first section that we'll go over, and you all will receive a worksheet at the end of this, and also for you to be using in the midst of this recording. So our first section is called Grounding in Our Needs. So it's like before you can even make an ask, you need to be able to ground in your needs, the needs of your community, the work that you're doing. Because if you're not clear on what your needs are, how will you make an ask, okay? And so one of our best practices after we've recognized what our needs are is affirming those needs. So we affirm that us as individuals, our work, our community, and our legacy are authorized to sustainability. And a lot of the times the asks that we make, right, have a lot to do with our sustainability and our longevity, not just like as individuals, but also people in movement shifting towards a liberatory tomorrow. And now we have a section called the no's, right? So here are some of the main components that make up an ask, and that you would like to have maybe in a one-pager, right? So you want to know your mission and your history. Tell a story, but not a long one, okay? Know what you're disrupting. How is your work changing the current climate of the field that you're in? So always think about that. What am I changing? And a lot of times, you know, people are very vague, like, oh, they feel good when they come and they interact with our work. But what are you changing? What is not necessarily the system, right? But what part and what does it look like? What are the deliverables? And then you want to know your numbers, okay? So knowing your numbers, this might sound general, but from your impact numbers to budgets, you want to be very, very sharp and very, very clear on what those numbers are, right? Next, you want to know what they are looking for. So be versed in the language of the stakeholder, right? So whether it's a funder, whether it's a volunteer, or whether it's a community partner, you want to be versed in the language that they use and the way that they look at the world, right? So you really want to understand their vision and then also how they use their resources. Okay, so every time you go into a partnership conversation, you want to be very aware about how they utilize their resources so you can figure out the best entryway to the partnership. And then you want to know the functionalities of your programs. So it's one thing to say like, oh, we build art and people come in during these times, but they want to hear, right, what is the day-to-day functionality of the program? What does it look like in the community? What are the operations like? Those kinds of very transparent things about a program and the design. And then also, of course, the day-to-day, like how are you all doing this work? Like how is it sustained? is always something good that you want to be versed in. And then lastly, just to double down, again, you want to know the need. The needs of your environment and the people that you all are serving, or the environment that you all are serving, has to be a focal point of how you're remedying that with either programming or direct organizing. That is something very important. So now I want you all to pause, take a little, I would say 15 minutes, and create a 90-second pitch, okay? So this pitch needs to include your organizational mission and history, what you are disrupting, and if you have like a theory of change, your impact statement, your budget, those things could be in there, okay? And then after you've done that, find a partner and share that pitch. And then invite your partner in to give you feedback, okay? So one of the things that I've learned, right, especially when it comes to feedback, is that it has to be consensual, okay? So be in the practice of asking like, hey, can I give you some feedback? And do that in the practice of introducing your pitch to your partner. And now that you all are back, our second section is get information, okay? So this is our preparation section. And first thing you want to do is to prepare all relevant materials. So you want to get a concise understanding of the work that you do. So building a narrative that is palatable, quantitative, and able to capture the voice of who you serve, and also what can be communicated to the stakeholder. You want to have a one-pager, a slideshow, pictures, things to show you all in the midst of doing the work. You also want to be versed on who the stakeholder is. Know how they talk, who they resource, how long they've been around. And if they are funders, right, you can check if they're like 501c3s, like you can check their 990s and see how much money they've gotten. Some funders put out like annual reports so that you can see where their money went. And so always do your due diligence. And if they are not, like if it is in-kind donations, right, like maybe you have a Lush donation, see which organization Lush is giving their products to. And this also helps you figure out like, oh, should we even be talking to them, right? Like you don't want to waste time. They don't want to waste your time. And so if you're starting to see like the more you do research on them that you're in misalignment, that's okay. Every resource, every connection, and every dollar may not be what you need. And that is very essential to like liberatory movement, is having a strong no. And then again, you want to be very clear on your needs. So you need to be able to speak clearly on your needs and what the return on investment will be for the stakeholder if they invest in your organization, okay? And when they can expect to see those changes, and that's where you want to talk about like your qualitative data. And then get your staff ready. So get your team ready. Everybody plays a part in a stakeholder ask, okay? Executive directors and lead stewards really need to make sure, one, that they lead the call with the intention of making space for their coworkers, especially those leading the operations of programs on the day-to-day. And I live by this: have a meeting before and after the meeting. That is how you can ensure coordination and also, make sure that you're in the practice of debrief and getting feedback. The next section that I have for you all is actually making the ask, okay? So you want to open the interaction specifically leading with who you all are. You want to make this quick because you want to give space to them to talk about who they are and kind of hear how they talk about their language so that you can be malleable in the moment with the verbiage that you use to kind of, use the language that they're using, right? When we're using the same kind of jargon, it means like we have a vibe, we have a flow, I get it, I see where you're coming from. And that connectivity alone, right, allows me to be like, what kind of work do they do, and provides more interest. Because you want it to feel organic, right? You want it to feel organic. You want them to lay the foundation of what's like a conversation instead of like an interrogation. And this also allows you to take on a powerful identity in the conversation, because what we often see, right, is this power under sometimes when folks go in to make an ask of like, oh, we're this downtrodden group and we have all of these oppressed identities and like, we're not surviving. No, you want to know, you want to go in there and be like, look at what we did with nothing and look at what your money can do and when you can expect to see these changes, right? Like have faith in the work and speak with confidence. You know, they say it with your chest is, you know, really how you want to show up and have a lot of confidence, and also be instilling in your staff this confidence all throughout, so that they are also able to speak to the work in a way that is very fluid and authentic. Because there's sometimes people who are in organizations who are leading the work, right, but can't speak to the entirety of the work or even speak to the same like flow of language. And so making sure that the staff has the same language to talk about the work shows like we are all actually in this together. That is one of our better practices. And so just to double back a little bit, answer their questions with integrity. You don't have to change who you are or take on a powerless identity when they ask about what your need is. And then making the ask. So you don't want to spend too much time divulging in every single part of your organization. You want to talk specifically about the entry points to partnership and where your organization fits that mold, right? And so if you can't remember anything else about your organization, you want to be able to talk about your mission, your vision, the change that you're making, and your impact statement. So this impact statement that I keep referring to is basically you capturing the changes and the evolution that you have been able to make through qualitative and quantitative data inside of your programming, okay? So this impact statement also has the components of what you're doing, the deliverables and the timeline, and then your current challenges, right? You can be transparent and talk about like, it actually was very hard for us to even get $5,000 this year, but with the $3,000 that we did get, you see, remedying it with like here's how we spun this challenge. So that shows the tenacity and the resilience. And unfortunately, we live in a bootstrap society. So those bootstrap mentalities move over into philanthropy and a lot of times like organizing. And so then once this is fully delivered, simply make the ask highlighting two things: your need from them, make it short and sweet. So the example that we had, we need 25,000 masks by February the 1st for our event, which will serve 2,500 people. And then you want to speak on their return on investment. Most of the times, if they are not loaning you something, you can frame this as the change that will be made, reporting, and doubling down on the impact statement. So then you can say, by February 26th, we will have decreased COVID-19 by 3%. And since we've been running this for 3 years, in total, we would see a 9% decrease in cases with your donation. So now you've laid it out there, right? And now you want to be malleable in the midst of the ask. So what this means is you and your team may have to be on your group chat. Be very careful about sending messages on Signal, but yeah, I'm a pro at it, right? If I see that red direct message, like I know who I'm talking to, and we might have a little banter going back and forth. And this is based on the response that we receive after the ask is made. So you may have to be in strategy on the spot, right, to sway the decision. So, you know, I have a very, very much so like by any means necessary approach, especially when it comes to resources that have been traditionally like gatekept from Black-led abolitionist organizations. I have this attitude of like, you got what's mine, and I'ma just, you know, I'ma just fluff it up, see different twists and turns to get what I need to get from this interaction. And that kind of like go-getter mentality also shows that not just like your worthiness, but your authorization, right? And so once you've either gotten your yes or your no, you want to ask questions, right? And specifically if you've gotten a yes, talk about the depths of the partnership, right? Talk about what will be required, what their ideal partner is, and what made them choose you. So these questions can also probably help either sway, like, wow, they feel, they're asking a lot, because you don't want to just say yes to the first thing, right? You want to, like I said, have integrity and be very discerning about relationships that you get into. A lot of the times, sending in the one pager or sending in the letter of interest or sending in the grant is only half of it, but actually talking to them and really seeing like what are the intricacies of the partnership and like what you're going to be required to do. That is always important. And so, asking them again, what made them choose you, that's always really juicy, right? You want to hear like, what got me to this point? And basically use that as a reminder. It's like, I'm here for a reason, okay? And then if you do have a yes, you want to report back to them the conditions of acceptance, right? So I'm very quick to be like, okay, so I just want to make sure that I have this very clear with all of us folks having understanding. What they can expect from you. And then lastly, thanking them for not only the investment in you, but also taking change but also the change that they're taking a part in, right? So that change, you want to double down on your vision, right? So keeping it connected to your work. And then lastly, you want to get off the call and debrief with your staff about like how to move forward if you got the yes. Now, our next session is turning a no to a next time. Okay, this is important. If the stakeholder is not in a place to move forward with your ask what they can do, right? Maybe they can't give you 5 volunteers, but they might have 2, right? Maybe they don't have the budget this year, but they can pull you in next year. Do not take the first no. Power, as I learned by Cindy Suarez, who wrote the Power Manual, power is negotiated, and leveraging their power and your need is the goal of the call, right? So be prepared with multiple points of entry to the relationship and multiple reasonings on why your needs need to be met. And then you want to ask them, what would have been needed for this to have been fruitful, right? So in the moment, what could have gotten a yes, right? And they may be like, we need a little more information on like the functionality, or something like that. And then you can tell them, hey, this time in 6 months, tomorrow, I'll have it ready. And so continuously, again, looking for other entry points back into the space. Then you want to also look at other resources that they can extend. So this may be an access to network, direct nurturing, right? So a lot of the time, you can ask folks, we didn't get your support here, but we want to get there. So it seems like you have the tools, the skills, and the team. We would love to book a call with you once a month to build a rapport and also be in the practice of like skill sharing, building these tools. And then again, don't leave without a point of entry back into the space. So make it known that you'll apply the feedback, when they can expect those changes to be applied, and then set the next date for you all to get back into the space. And then lastly, after you've done this is really important. After your interaction, if you've received a no, you first want to do some self-care internally, starting with yourself and then with your staff or community members who's doing this work with you. No's affect everybody, so prioritizing like your organizational wellness is really, really important. And as we get ready to close out, I want to leave with you all a couple of tidbits of power when you're making an ask. Everyone is a stakeholder. Once you're versed in your project, you should be able to captivate anyone from any background to invest in some way. Every no gets you closer to a yes. Money is not the only resource that can be leveraged to build sustainable organizations. Resources that are good for you may be good for somebody else. So always lift the name of beloved comrades in spaces that they may not be in. And lastly, every resource isn't a good resource. All money ain't good money, and be watchful of power dynamics that aren't liberatory. And that also may mean in your organization. So this concludes today's workshop on how to make an ask, or what I like to call closed mouths don't get fed, the art of making an ask. Again, my name is Angel Alicea. My pronouns are she, her, and Aya. I am the executive director and founder of Beyond Trenches. You can find our work at Black Inmates Matter on Instagram, Facebook, and you can send us an email at blackinmatesmatter@gmail.com if you're ever interested in some of our work or, building liberatory tomorrow. So thank you all again. And I hope that this information exceeds your expectations and you're able to use it and also reaches other people in your network. Thank you so much.